In this episode, I will be sharing with you how I used to struggle in the winter months and what I finally did regularly that changed the game for me. If you don't already know who I am, my name is Laurie, and I help eldest daughters and sensitive leaders regulate their nervous system, stop surviving, and start leading with their entire body, lineage, and life. As many of you might also know me from my nonprofit Hike to Yoga, I'm going to preface why winter months are so important in regards to nature, because we are part of nature and there is nothing that we can do to break that biological connection. So I think it was in sixth grade in social studies when I discovered something called crop rotations. So if you don't know what this is, it's something that I believe started in the agricultural revolution. And at that time, it was revolutionary because the basic concept is that you split the land into four parts. And what you're doing is you plant different plants that would actually use the nutrients or replenish the nutrients so that the next year you could rotate them again. And get this, for every fourth plot, there's one that stands empty. And I thought this was so interesting because at that point in my very young life, I realized, wow, even nature is saying that for the utmost productivity, we have to rest. I love this story so much because I think there is such an intelligence that nature brings us. And even though we have these seasons, so well, not really if you're in Los Angeles like me, but we tend to push through because society has conditioned us that productivity is the end goal, regardless if you deplete yourself. And nature has been telling us that that's not the case and we shouldn't be doing that. I want to give you another example in terms of women's bodies because I have a women's body. And even if you don't have a women's body, you probably have women in your life. So I think it's really important to know this. As we know, and if you don't, please, like now you do, the hormones for the male body is like a 24-hour cycle. And for a woman, it's actually like a 28 to 30, 35-day cycle. And what that means is that we actually have our own period of winter during the month. And for men, like let's put this into context. For men, winter is the 8 hours you spend sleeping, right? So, or I guess six if you divide that day into four parts, right? You have 6 hours where you should be literally recharging and sleeping. And that's also why they say men need less sleep than women do. So, women, because we have the cycle of like, let's say for just math's sake, we'll use 28 cycles. It means that in those 7 days where we're supposed to be in our winter, we're supposed to be resting. And I don't have to go into details about how all those different menstruation products were like, yeah, you can run and you can play tennis and swimming. Like, we're not supposed to be doing any of that. If anything, we should be resting and taking it easy so that our body can actually break down and replenish whatever needs to happen during that time so that our uterus can actually be in optimal shape. I'll probably talk more about menstruation and women's periods and things like that because really allowing myself to rest during menstruation and really honor my body has been a game changer in not just my health, but in how I manage my businesses and how I manage my relationships. And by honoring rest, it's like I'm honoring myself. So those are two stories of nature. And by that, women's bodies, why There is there's a reason why we say rest is productivity because in the art of doing nothing, we allow for restoration to take place, for rejuvenation to happen, right? When we sleep, the brain is actually doing things and taking care of different processes that when we're awake, we utilize the energy. And when we're sleeping, it can actually take over this energy and do its own thing. So, to round up these stories, there is this rest that we tend to neglect, and it hurts us more than we would like to believe. So, if you are Chinese or part of the population that celebrates the Lunar New Year, we still have a good 2 months before the spring equinox, about 2 months until the spring equinox. So we're still in winter. So if you're like, man, I missed all the rest that I could have done during this past winter, you're in luck because in this time frame, you can still put in some practices and do some rituals that will actually help you to set up before this new year. So, well, the new lunar new year. So, I'm going to tell you some things that really helped me and also give you some examples of how you can implement them into your own life. So, the first one is hibernate. I know it sounds crazy, and people are like, well, I have to go to work and I have to socialize. I understand. We live in the modern world and we definitely have to be out there, right? So, think about it like this. When there are lots of animals that hibernate, like bears, right? They go into their caves and sleep for a few months just to conserve energy because it's so dang cold outside. There's even native plants in California that I know of that hibernate during the winter because there's just not as much sun and it just doesn't make sense. So we know that there are less things happening. And this might be also because of the holidays and there's that slowdown of dry January and all of that. So instead of trying to make things happen when things are not happening, it's like, why not take a step back and just enjoy the coziness of your home? If your home is not as cozy as you would like, why not create some projects that are simple and easy that make your home more cozy? Because, I am a big believer that your space shapes your environment and your lifestyle. So if you take the time to build a fountain or create a little cozy nook where you like to read and hang out. Or my personal favorite is having a yoga corner. That would be the best thing to just create a place where you can actually rest and hibernate because most of the private clients that I've had, when I ask them, do you practice at home? They tell me, no, like I don't have a space and there's clutter everywhere and it's basically chaotic. So I tell them, it sounds to me like you kind of have a chaotic space and therefore it makes you like scattered. And it's true. Like we've heard what they say about when your desk is cluttered and you have all these, disorganized papers all over the place. Like, how can you work? And as a neurodivergent person who struggles with ADHD and I definitely know this because I know before I sit down to work, I have to put away stuff, and that helps so much. So, the first rule is to create a space that you want to hibernate in. And this is like by far the biggest game changer because your environment dictates your lifestyle. The second thing that has been such a game changer is journaling. And for those of you that know me, I am a huge advocate for the bullet journal method. It has helped me in so many different ways just because I need structure, but I have to create it myself. And one of the things that I think are super important in the winter months is to take inventory and to set goals for what you want to do. Because this time is about rest and hibernation, it can also be like brainstorming, right? You can think about, well, maybe I could put it on my list to make my house more cozy, but what does that mean? So it's a really great time to clear out the clutter of everything around you and to really go deep into what do you need right now? What would you like to happen this year? And I think one of the reasons how we get set back is we're not realistic. And to be super transparent, like I remember like how I would write down all these really big goals and I didn't really believe that they were going to happen because I'm like, "Oh wow, they're going to happen, but maybe in like a year, 2, 5, 10." And so I wasn't really focused on what I could do now. Like, what are the next things that I could complete in the next month, in the next 3 months, in the next year? And you can also have like a running list for things that you want to accomplish in the coming years. But I think being able to use this rest to reflect and to dream is also part of that like incubation period, right? There's this quote that I think often, and it's like, when a seed is planted, it's in the dark, right? Like a new moon. And sometimes we can be scared of the dark, like more about shadow work and working with the darkness later. But think about how in the winter months you are planted. And so in that seed is so much potential, is so much just infinity, if you think about it. Like anything can come from this next year, right? We're in the winter. We're that like barren land that's being set aside to just regenerate. And in the next quarter or in the next season, when spring comes, things are going to bloom. So think about what is it that you want to bloom in the spring? And we know the land is finite, your energy, your time, your resources are finite. What can you plant in this next quarter, in this next year? What would you want to harvest in the fall? What would you like to celebrate next winter? So that is number two. Um, last one. This last one is also just like such a game changer because, I am a yoga therapist. I practice yoga. I exercise. I do Pilates. I do a lot of fun stuff. We can talk more about that in another episode. But the most important thing is your health starts in the kitchen, right? I'm all about Ayurveda and how eating with the seasons, eating locally, eating for your body type is all important. But in these winter months, what changed my life was actually eating more root veggies and like broths that have been simmered for hours. It's almost like, think about it like this. In the winter months, it is cold, it is dry, and you're trying to restore in your body. So we want to eat more things that have heavy nutrients in them. Like heavy things include like meat and cheeses and fats. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's why we would say like, the winter coat to kind of keep you warm. There's a time to eat all of those things. Like, I'm also French and this is a time when we would eat the cheeses and the heavy creams there's a lot more fat for that reason because we're trying to build this resilience through food. And I never really paid attention before my yoga training, and I was also drinking a lot of alcohol. And so alcohol depletes the body across all systems, it dehydrates. And I'm just learning that when we actually take the time to nourish our bodies, it is such a game changer. So, if you guys want my recipe for bone broth that I turn into stews with root vegetables, I would be happy to make another episode. Just let me know. But one of the main things that are easy is that you can just get root vegetables. You can roast them. You can make bone broth. You can buy them. I always think homemade is best, but you do you. I started drinking, bottled bone broth and I was like, I can see this helps. But yeah, you do it in baby steps. So what I'm trying to say here is that try to nourish your body so that you can have a beautiful, restful winter. Like surrender into the hibernation patterns that are already there. Journal and plant seeds that are I guess it's not about planting seeds, but what are the seeds you want to plant more than? Now you're the farmer, you're this gardener. So what kind of plants do you want in your garden? And lastly, make sure you are putting fertilizer down that you are actually tending to the barren ground so that it's ready for planting in the spring. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. I'm also going to be hosting small group circles and regulation and nervous system regulation labs in the near future. So be sure to subscribe to my email list as all invites will be out of there. And I am so excited to share all these winter rituals with you. If you have already done any of these and have your own to share that you would like me to try, I would be so excited to hear about them in the comments. So thank you so much. And I will see you next week.